we have amyloid soluble. We'll get started in just a minute as soon as Ann gives us the green light.
And we're live.
We're live. We're live. Okay. It's hello, everyone. It's and for those on Facebook, thank you for having your camera on so I could see you to begin with. Makes a difference when I can see people out there. It's 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock here in Costa Rica, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, midnight in Dublin. Wow. And in London, 1 a.m. in Milan and Warsaw, 4:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in New Delhi, 11 a.m. Wednesday morning in Auckland, 9 a.m. in Australia, and it's Facebook Live. And hello. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm solo tonight, which is great. Our intended guest caught the flu. And she said, well, it's probably COVID, but I don't give a damn. I've just got the flu. And so she's just taking care of herself, and we'll have JJ Virgin on another time. But it's great to be here. And we thought that we'd talk about this topic of brain fog in a little more detail. And what do you do about this thing? And first, what is brain fog? You know, it's like there's a cloud, and you just can't see clearly through the cloud. You can't quite refine your thoughts. Sometimes there's a word that's missing. You just can't quite grab it. And one thing is always present when there's brain fog, and that is inflammation. There's always inflammation in the brain, excessive inflammation, which is contributing to the brain fog. So how do we know if we have an inflamed brain? This whole thing about Alzheimer's and the fear of dementia, it's very valid, very real. And some of you have heard me talk about this before, that there's an entire developmental period for cognitive decline. And it's 25 to 30 years of no symptoms whatsoever, but excess amounts of inflammation, killing off brain cells, until there's been enough damage. Now you start asking the question, where did I park my car in the parking lot? What row is it in? Or where are my keys? Where did I put my keys? Or the simple things of life that there's just a fog. You can't quite grab onto it. That is indicative of 15 plus to 20 plus years of excess inflammation in the brain that didn't cause any symptoms that we could recognize. And it's really important to get that, because then you understand, once you understand that mechanism, then you understand that it's going to take 6 months to a year to turn this thing around, because this has been building in a particular direction for so long. And, I think it's worth it. I'm going to take a moment here to bring up a couple of slides that elaborates on this, because we're all dealing with this to one degree or another, this thing about brain fog and brain deterioration. So, and I have talked about these couple of slides before, but I'm hoping if you've heard it before, you'll pick up a new piece of information from it. So I'm going to bring up this slide. It'll take a moment for my computer to bring it up because the file is so big. But the concept is, it's been 20, 25 to 30 years of excess inflammation causing damage before you ever have a symptom. That is a big concept to understand. So the I feel fine syndrome that so many people have, I feel fine, I'm okay. Like when people talk about gluten, they say, no, I can eat pizza, I feel fine. Not wanting to recognize the amount of damage that accrues when we take in foods that cause inflammation and leaky gut every time we eat them. So why is this thing not opening when I'm asking it to? Well, it'll open if it opens. So this concept is that it's been building for a long time. And the book that I published a couple of years ago, You Can Fix Your Brain, put it in perspective. And I think it's about 35 different to-dos in there or informations. For example, get glass storage containers in the kitchen, stop using plastic, because the chemicals that mold the plastic, the plasticizers, are in the food when you store food in it overnight. The chicken that you put in there the next day, the chicken's got phthalates in it. And any food you put in there, acidic foods like tomato sauce are much worse. But any foods will have plasticizers in them when they're stored in plastic containers. So you get glass storage containers. So I give you 3 URLs that you can look at and see which ones you really like. And you order glass storage containers, and that's a step in the right direction. All right, I've got these slides up now. So I'm just going to go through this because it's such a jaw dropper when you understand the mechanisms that got us to where we are. So here's the, let's see if I can get this screen. Do I have it full screen? No, I don't have it full screen yet. Why don't I have it? Here we go. Let's do that. There we go. Okay. So the National Institute of Health came out with they brought an advisory council together 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago now. And they brought in the best minds in the world to look at what are we going to do about Alzheimer's? Because they knew that it was going to bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid within the next 15 to 20 years, that the percentage of people getting these diseases is going up exponentially. Terrible increase, terrible. For example, between 30 and 44-year-olds, the people diagnosed with Alzheimer's went up 407% between 2013 and 2017. In 4 years, the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds went up 407%. That it's a major, major crisis, and nobody's paying attention to it. But they knew this was happening, and they were seeing down in the future, we won't be able to sustain this. We won't be able to treat these people at all. So they brought this advisory council together, and they came up with this drawing. And they said, this is part of their report on how Alzheimer's develops. And you don't wake up one day and get a diagnosis that has been developing over years. And it starts off with, let me see here, there we go, with a normal level of antibodies in your brain. It's normal to have some antibodies. Why? Because you have an entire new body every few years, and every cell in your body regenerates. So how does that happen? You have to get rid of the old and damaged cells to make room for new cells. And how do you do that? Well, part of the way that happens is by antibodies to your brain tissue, and antibodies to your heart, antibodies to your liver and to your muscles. So you get rid of the old and damaged cells, and the new cells come. So there's a normal level of antibodies. But because of the lifestyle we live, the air that we breathe, the toxic air that we're exposed to, the foods that we eat, the packaged foods that have so many different chemicals in them, we get more inflammation in our body, and we eventually cross the line of tolerance. When you cross the line of tolerance, now you get inflammation throughout your body. And the inflammation can come from a loss of tolerance to food, to bacteria or viruses, to environmental exposures like air pollution or mold in the house, electromagnetic pollution, too many stress hormones being produced, structural problems. We cross the line of tolerance. And now you start getting all this inflammation in your body. And because we get this inflammation, we get elevated levels of antibodies. And the antibodies are to the food you eat or to the bacteria you're exposed to or the viruses you're exposed to and any other, it's called an antigen that your immune system says, well, that's a problem. We can't have any more of that here. And you get elevated levels of antibodies. Those elevated levels of antibodies, we know, affect the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is between the blood and the brain because everything in the blood is not supposed to get into the brain. Only certain things are supposed to get in. But what happens is that people get a leaky brain. And this is a little geeky, sorry for that. But I wanted to show this slide because for those that have excess histamine, that can cause a leaky brain. Bacterial exposures can cause it. That's why you have to clean your shower heads because the shower heads accumulate lots of bad bacteria like Clostridium and Streptococcus are common in shower heads. So you have to clean your shower heads. We have a handout for that at theDr.com, how to do that. But all of these different things we're exposed to can cause the leaky brain. It's a breach of the blood-brain barrier. So that's happening and you feel fine. You don't feel that there's a problem with your brain. And this goes on for 20 years or more. Once again, this is the National Institute of Health that put out this report. And I'm just elaborating on the slide so we can understand what they're telling us and the significance of every stage here. And notice the second red circle. There's no symptoms. You feel fine. You're in your 20s and your 30s, maybe into your 40s, and you don't have any symptoms. You feel fine. But you keep living the lifestyle that causes this. So where did the loss of tolerance begin? It begins right there when it's called the transition into the prodromal stage, when you lose tolerance to the foods or too much bacteria. Every time you take a shower, you get blasted with millions and millions of bacteria if you haven't cleaned your shower heads. And so everyone needs to do that at least every 6 months to a year. And if you live in warm climates like Hawaii or Florida or Southern California or Arizona, you have to do it every 6 months. And all you have to do is unscrew the shower head from the pipe. It just needs a wrench. It's really easy. And you take the whole shower head, you put it in a Ziploc bag with vinegar. But you can't use a simple supermarket vinegar. You have to get stronger vinegar. You can get it at Amazon, 8% or more. We use 30%, but that's really powerful. You have to wear a mask when you use vinegar that strong, but 8% or more will work to kill the bacteria. You just soak it in there overnight, and the next day you take it out, rinse it off a little bit, and then you just put it back on and turn the water on. Don't stand underneath it, but turn the water on, kind of rinse it out of all the vinegar and the dead bugs, because there's a film that these bugs produce in your shower head. It's called a biofilm. It's the bug's way of trying to protect themselves from being attacked. And it gets to be almost like a polymer, almost like a hard plastic. And that's why you need stronger vinegar to clean it. But that's just one example of it. My book is full of many examples of those little things you do that take you an hour, but then you're much safer for months and months. So that loss of tolerance begins there. And the result is you get this leaky brain. It goes on for over 20 years. There are no symptoms. And then you progress to mild cognitive impairment. This is the leaky, this is brain fog. This is the leaky brain. This goes on for 7 years. And now you're walking out into the parking lot and you're saying, where's my car? What road did I park it in? Where's my keys? Oh, that person walking towards me. What's their name again? And we joke about it because we say, oh, I'm getting old, haha. No, it's brain dysfunction. It's brain fog. And then that progresses, it goes on, and Well, I talk about here hyposmia. This is one of the signs that you're in mild cognitive impairment when you're losing your sense of smell. So if you go to theDr.com, and these are the studies that you can download at theDr.com. It's theDr.com/smell. We'll put the link there, and these studies are here for you. And you read about them and you see, wow. So when I'm losing my sense of smell, it's an early marker. They call it a biomarker of Alzheimer's pathology, that this occurs, you lose your sense of smell years before you have severe memory problems. So when you do the smell test, this is the smell test, and there's the URL, theDr.com/smell. The one below is really for healthcare practitioners because they can buy these tests in blocks of 10. For an individual, they're $49. The doctors can buy them for $29, and then they can sell them for $49 so they can cover their costs to pay the staff to order the tests and to give them to you and all that. But it's such a simple test, and it'll tell you if you're losing your sense of smell. So you go to the dr.com/smell. All those studies are there for you. You can download them. You order the test. You do the test. It's really simple. You do it in your house in 5 minutes, and you look at the results. And if you score 9 or below out of 12, you got hyposmia. Then you go to your doctor, and you might take a couple of these articles with you because they don't know about this. And you can say, you know, I didn't pass the smell test. And here's some articles that talk about this. Can you review this? And can we form a plan together? And if your doctor's a holistic doctor or a functional medicine doctor, they'll know what to do. They'll know what to do to start exploring where the inflammation is coming from. If they don't know what to do or they poo-poo this, then you know that for this topic, you need a new doctor. So here we go. You know, we've got this. This is the area that I call the window of opportunity. That before you have any symptoms whatsoever, brain fog or any others, if we can get you in the prodromal stage, it's not hard to turn around at all. In the mild cognitive impairment stage, it's a challenge, but it's not that difficult. It can be done fairly easily. When you get to the mild Alzheimer's stage, now it's more difficult. You can do it, and that's the work of Dale Bredesen and the clinics that have opened around the world doing Bredesen protocols, but it's a fully focused attention to stop the progression of the inflammation, killing off brain cells. And that progresses to moderate Alzheimer's, and that progresses to severe Alzheimer's. And that's what we go through. So when you get brain fog, it's the earlier indicator, it's mild cognitive impairment that's occurring. It's a wake-up call. And so the question is, well, what do I do about what can I take for that? The first thing to say is that you can't take anything until you stop throwing gasoline on the fire. You can't keep living the lifestyle that's causing the problem, creating the inflammation that's affecting your brain function, or it can affect your blood vessels and you get your pipes plugged up in your heart, or it can affect your joints and you get arthritis, or it can affect your skin and you get psoriasis. It doesn't matter what the tissue is. It's the inflammation that has to be reduced. That's the big picture. So you have to explore where in my lifestyle, for me and my family, is the inflammation coming from. Because inflammation is your immune system trying to protect you from something. So the question is, what is it trying to protect you from? We think that it's okay to eat processed foods. And when you look at the list of ingredients on the side of the package and you don't even know if it's English or not, because it's chemical names, you can't eat that stuff and think it's okay. Well, it tastes really good. That's because they hire PhD biochemists to create these products that stimulate your taste buds to create addictive desire. That's the game that they play with processed foods. And they add things like microbial transglutaminases that tear up your gut. Because Joe Mercola and his website, Mercola.com, I think that's still his website. I think so. He has this great video on meat glue. And what meat glue is microbial transglutaminases. And they take the leftover cuts of meat, the garbage that is, when they're chopping up a cow or something, they take the pieces, they flatten them out together, they put some transglutaminase enzymes on it, they roll it up like a sushi roll, and the enzymes start to eat the meat a little bit to soften it up. And 24 to 48 hours later, they slice it and they sell it as filet. And it's really hard to see the difference between a true filet mignon, and a microbial transglutaminase end cuts of meat that they formed into a filet. And we think it's okay to eat that stuff, but it's not. The microbial transglutaminases tear up your gut, just like they start to tear up the meat and soften the meat. And, in Japanese restaurants where they use it's almost like fish sticks, not deep fried, but they're like these slices of crab, imitation crab. It's the same thing. It's the garbage that they couldn't use for anything else. They flatten it out. They put these enzymes on it. They roll it up, leave it for a day to 2 days. The enzymes soften it all together, and then they slice it in a way that makes it look like it's crab. So much of what we take for granted as being safe to eat is not safe, and it has an effect long term. It builds up, more and more of this builds up over time. We really need to come back to organic fruits and vegetables, quality meats, maybe eggs, if you like eggs, quality free range eggs, and start exploring, how do I find sources for higher quality food? It's a critical component in your desire to be healthier as you move into later years and you want vitality. I want my period of disability to be as short as possible. So when we live our lives, you peak around the age of 28 or so, and then the body is a slow, steady downhill, not quite as functional at 40 as you were at 20. Not quite as strong at 60 as you were at 40, a little bit down. But for most of us, we come up here, we peak, maybe not as high as we should have, but because already there's too many chemicals, and then it's a steep decline. Now you're in your 60s, you got arthritis and you can barely walk, right? And there's years and years of disability. Or you get a stroke and you're around for 10, 15 years and you can't use one side of your body. My goal, and I hope, is I stay at a pretty good level of function and my period of disability is really short. I have a stroke or a heart attack and I'm gone. That's my goal. And I hope it happens many, many years from now. But whenever it is, I want that period of disability to be as small as possible. So I've got a fully vibrant, dynamic, everyday life. That's my goal. And I think for most people, if they ponder it, they would agree that that's a worthy goal to include when you're thinking about health goals. You aren't going to get there if you're eating imitation crab. You aren't going to get there if you're eating TV dinners. Okay, I'll pause on that. So this period of disability in brain function begins after 25 years of no symptoms, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells. We have to understand that. So it's ridiculous to ask a question, well, what can I take that'll fix this? There's nothing that will fix it. There are things that I'll tell you that certainly can help you function better. But if you keep throwing gasoline on the fire, if you keep living the lifestyle that's caused you to get to where you are right now, it's like a dog chasing its tail. It keeps going around and around in a circle. But if you keep doing that lifestyle, you're going to get the same result. You may delay it for a little bit, but it's a change in lifestyle that we all need to recognize. Going for a walk every day, and many of you have heard me talk about wear a pulse monitor when you exercise, and your pulse monitor is your coach. The rule is you never argue with your coach, never, because body language never lies. And so you get a pulse monitor with an alarm, and you set the pulse monitor for your aerobic range. And the formula is 180 minus your age, plus or minus 5. So I'm 70. So that would be 180 minus 70. So that's 110 plus or minus 5. So that's 105 to 115. That's my pulse range. And you exercise there 30 minutes a week. Well, don't I have to run? Well, maybe walking is going to get you into your pulse range. Maybe a mini trampoline, just walking on a mini trampoline, whatever you like to do. But the intensity that you do it is determined by your cardiovascular system. And when you exercise aerobically, you burn fat for fuel. When you exercise above your pulse range, you burn protein for fuel. That's muscle, and that's collagen on your joints. You burn out your joints. So you always want to exercise in your aerobic range. There are two exceptions to that formula. One, if you've been diagnosed with some disease, you take 5 off of that. So instead of 180, it's 175 minus your age, plus or minus 5. And the other, if your resting pulse in the morning is lower than 70. So if your resting pulse in the morning is 60, when you wake up, it's 60. That's a really good resting pulse rate. Mine used to be 52 to 54 when I was running regularly. I don't run anymore. So now my resting pulse is usually about 60 to 62. So that means for me, I don't have a diagnosed disease, but I would take 10 off of that because 72 is a normal pulse, 72 beats a minute. So, oh, look who's here. Yes, with a big smile on his face. Hi, come here. Can everybody who's on Facebook turn your cameras on for a minute and say hello and just wave to it? Look, hi, Jim. Look, Jim. Look. Yes. Yeah. He's like, whoa, I've never seen so many people. Yes. Hi. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Oh, there's Ann too. There's Ann. Hi, Ann. Yeah. Okay. Say bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Superstar.
Yeah. So my resting pulse, because it's usually 60 or 62, I would take 10 off of the 180. So it'd be 170 minus my age. So it'd be 100 plus or minus 5. So if you have a lower resting pulse rate, then that's your lower base that you start from. Exercise is one of the best things you can do for your brain. It has so many benefits, so many studies that have talked about this. It doesn't matter as much what form of exercise you do. It matters how intensely you do it. If you do it too intense, so your pulse is higher than your aerobic range, it's detrimental long-term because you burn protein for fuel. You break down your body's tissue. When you exercise in your aerobic range, you burn fat for fuel. The spare tire that most of us have around our midsection, that's the first to go when you're doing aerobic exercise regularly. And most studies say it's 150 minutes a week. So that's 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Some people like to take Saturday and Sunday off. Some people like to take Wednesday and Sunday off. You know, you can split it up. whatever works for you. But that's the goal to work towards. When you begin this concept of exercising and you go out for a walk and your pulse is up into your aerobic range pretty quickly, you say, wow, that didn't take much at all to get my heart working harder. Yeah, that's all you need. And then you say, oh, I have to go faster than this. And you start walking faster, and now your pulse is above your heart range. That becomes detrimental long term. So when it goes beep, 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 wow, my pulse is too high. Okay, I'll slow down now. I'll slow down. And you never argue with your coach. That's the first thing. First concept is that using your body. And if you can't walk for some reason, get on a mini trampoline, and they come now with handles. So anybody who can stand up and even walk a little bit, you get on a mini trampoline, you just hold on and you just push, and you'll see that your pulse is getting up there. So we have people of all ages here tonight. And so some people need to run at a really good clip to get their pulse up into their aerobic range. Some people can just walk, and some people just walking up the stairs will get their pulse going too high. You'll see where yours is at. It's a really important concept. If you're not currently exercising, that's the one of the important things that you could do that makes a powerful change in your metabolism in a relatively short period of time. Within a couple, 3 weeks, you'll notice the difference. Next, first thing in the morning when people wake up, they usually go to the bathroom. The very next thing, drink 2 big glasses of water. Most of us are dehydrated, and getting enough water helps your body to flush and detox. This is simple lifestyle things that make a big difference in the long term. For Marzi and I, my job in the morning when we wake up, my job is to make the coffee, and I start with the 2 glasses, and I put a scoop of Vitality C protein powder, not protein powder, vitamin C. It's called Vitality C. I put it in our glass of water and just stir it with a spoon. It mixes really easily. I like that form of vitamin C because it's not acidic, and it also has ribose. Ribose is a fuel that your furnaces called the mitochondria use every cell of your body. And so it gives you a little extra ribose that gives you a little more energy in every cell of your body. So we start with our big glass of water to start the day with, and I put vitamin C in it. And Anne will put the link here for Vitality C. I've been using Vitality C for maybe 30 years. It's just the easiest and the most pleasant on our bodies. Marzi likes it too. So in lifestyle changes, there are so many things like that you want to look at. But as you begin the lifestyle changes, and they're all outlined in my book, You Can Fix Your Brain. Once again, I think it's 30 or 35 different pearls, like the pulse monitor, and get glass storage containers instead of Tupperware, how to clean your shower, all those things are in there in that book, You Can Fix Your Brain. Then your foods. Most people, I don't think I've ever met anyone that has a diagnosis of a health problem who doesn't have foods that they're eating that their body doesn't like. They may taste good and you like the flavor of them, but the immune system is fighting those foods. I don't think I've ever met anyone that didn't have foods that were common in their diet, like wheat or dairy or soy or eggs, something like that. So explore to find out what foods am I currently eating that are causing more inflammation. And you won't feel bad when you're eating those foods. If you eat something and you feel sick, it's pretty obvious, well, I can't eat that anymore. Or, well, I'm not going to eat that very often. I don't feel good the next day, but I really like it when I eat it. Our minds do silly things. But most people don't feel bad when they eat a primary food on a regular basis that's not great for them. But those foods, the most common trigger for inflammation is what's on the end of your fork. And you explore to find out, well, what foods might I be sensitive to? One of the ways to tell, there's a couple of ways to tell, and they're not foolproof, but they can help. When you take your socks off at night, do you have sock marks on your legs? That's edema. That means you're likely eating something that's not good for you. Or the elastic band on your underwear. When you pull your underwear down, is there an elastic band mark around your waist? That's edema. And that's mild edema, but that often is associated with food sensitivities. Next, when you take your fingers and you scratch on your tummy, can't see it here, but you just go on your tummy, 1, 2, 3. And you're not gouging in there, you're just feeling a little bit of nail on your tummy as you're going across. Then just look in the mirror in 30 seconds. Do you see red streaks where you just went across? That means there's too much histamine in your body. You're having a histamine reaction. That's another suggestion that there's probably some foods common in your diet that aren't great for you, causing more inflammation. They're just a couple of little telltale, simple clues that can help. But explore where is my inflammation coming from? All right, I've got brain fog. All right, so my brain's inflamed. That's what brain fog is. It's inflammation in the brain. So these are simple things that you can do. Next, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, get a blood test done to look for inflammation in your brain. And the most comprehensive test in the world, and I travel the world teaching all over. Some of you know, a couple of months ago, Marzi and Gio and I, we went to 5 countries, 7 weeks, 5 countries, Dublin, London, Milan, Switzerland, Poland, and I gave 5 lectures. And I'm talking about, and every time at a break, I go down and I look at the vendors who are there for the doctors, the different laboratories and things, and I look at their calendars and their catalogs. And there's no lab in the world that's got better tests than these. They're called the Zoomers. For wheat, it's the wheat Zoomer. For dairy, it's the dairy Zoomer. For your brain, it's called the Neural Zoomer Plus. There's also the Neural Zoomer, but that looks at 8 markers. The Neural Zoomer Plus looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain. So you get a Neural Zoomer Plus blood test. You go to our website and we'll put the link here. You can read information, download some information, take it to your doctor and say, would you order this test for me, please? And they probably won't because they don't know what it is. And they only can order tests if they're in a hospital that the hospital authorizes. Lots of politics around all of this. It's really unfortunate. But if your doctor won't order the test, you can order the test on our website. They'll send you the test kit and they'll coordinate for you to get a phlebotomist to come to your house or where you work. You get the blood drawn, they take it away, and in 2 weeks, you've got your results, looking at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain. Then you know exactly what you have to deal with, where the inflammation is coming from. And it takes some expertise to interpret the test, but Michelle Ross, at michelleross.com. She can interpret the test for you. I don't see many patients at all. They have to be really a difficult case before I'm going to talk to them. It's just I don't have the time because of everything else I'm doing in the world. But Michelle worked with theDr.com for many years by my side, and she teaches doctors how to interpret these tests. So she's great to work with once you've got the tests done. So now you have identified the foods that you might be sensitive to, what type of inflammation you have in your brain. For example, if you have elevated antibodies to herpes, get little cold sores once in a while in the corner of your mouth and that, there's over 260 studies on herpes and Alzheimer's, 260. So Unfortunately, so when people break out in a little cold sore, a little herpes sore, it means their immune system can't handle it anymore. And it's extremely likely they've got elevated antibodies, and the virus is also in the brain. And the antibodies are going into the brain to try to deal with it. So you have to identify what are the triggers that someone is dealing with. Where is it coming from? So that's the Neural Zoomer Plus. Then let's talk about the hullabaloo that's been going on in the world of Alzheimer's research for the last couple of months. So we all know that there is this compound called amyloid beta, and many studies, probably hundreds of studies, have talked about amyloid beta in the brain. That's the cause of Alzheimer's. But there'd be studies every once in a while that say, well, amyloid beta is not a bad guy. It's really not. But those studies were always suppressed. Doctors wouldn't talk about them because of the volume of studies on amyloid beta. Well, the pharmaceutical industry has spent literally billions of dollars trying to find something to stop the production of amyloid beta. They can't, because it's part of your immune system. It turns out that all of that focus on amyloid beta the primary article came out in, I think it was 2006, maybe 2008, by a researcher on the East Coast, identifying amyloid beta in the brain of Alzheimer's patients. Turns out they forged the data. They took pictures of graphs and they pasted. They took a little bit of this one and then a little bit of this one and pasted it in, a little bit of this one and pasted it in there, so that it looked like amyloid beta was really the culprit. They forged the photos. That wasn't discovered until just earlier this year. And over 2,000 papers have been published on Alzheimer's using that original study as one of their references for their whole line of thinking about amyloid beta being a bad guy. Amyloid beta is not a bad guy. Bad amyloid beta is a bad guy. There's two types of amyloid beta. One's called soluble and one is called insoluble. And now we know, it's the insoluble that is crud, sticky, and it sticks in your brain. The soluble amyloid beta is a good guy. It's part of your immune system going into the brain to kill viruses, to kill bacteria, to kill anything that's not supposed to be there. Because there are a number of papers that show elders, when they do MRIs, there are some elders that have a whole lot of amyloid beta, but they've got no cognitive decline. Wait, the MRI shows they're loaded with amyloid beta. How can this be? Well, it's because it's soluble. It's not blocking the nerves from functioning the way they're supposed to. It's just the immune system has been fighting all of this stuff that you've been exposed to over a lifetime. So the point that I want to make here is that soluble amyloid beta is good for you. It's protective. Insoluble amyloid beta is not. Okay, how do I prevent insoluble amyloid beta from accumulating in my brain? The trigger for the conversion of soluble to insoluble is called oxidative stress, which means inflammation. We're right back to how do I live more of an anti-inflammatory lifestyle? And what foods do I put into do the foods I put in my body cause more oxidative stress? And there's one category of good foods. I mean, most of you know what the good foods are and the bad foods, so I don't need to go into all that. Obviously eating deep fried food is not good for you. Eating sugar is not good for you. eating bad fats, not good for you. But there's one category that has been shown to be especially aggressive at converting soluble amyloid into insoluble amyloid. Now, the geek term for it is called advanced glycation end products, AGE, AGEs. Advanced glycation end products are produced in any food when you burn it. So like when you blacken food on meat on a grill, that's AGEs, advanced glycation end products. I made dinner 2 nights ago, and I don't do that very often, and I could see why. The lamb chops came out pretty good. They had nice flavor to them. But I made sweet potato fries, and after 20 minutes at 200 in the oven, they were still a little bit soft. So I thought, I'll turn the broiler on. So I'm going to broil them, just get them a little bit crisp. So I turned the broiler on and I set the timer for 5 minutes. And in just about 4 minutes, we're starting to smell something's burning, right? So 1.5 to 2 minutes would have been great, but I burned them because I left the broiler on too long. The result, these just healthy organic slices of sweet potato with some ghee on them, and I put some Italian seasoning in a Ziploc bag and the potatoes and the ghee, shake them all up in there, and then a little olive oil and a little salt. That this really healthy sweet potato fries now had advanced glycation end products on them. They were burnt. Couldn't eat them. I picked out the ones that didn't have much, on it, and so we ate those. That's why I don't cook very often. But the less you eat burnt food or deep fried foods that are cooked at high temperature, the less advanced glycation end products you're being exposed to. The less advanced glycation end products you're being exposed to, the less conversion of soluble amyloid to insoluble will occur in your body. So you start thinking about fresh, organic fruits and vegetables. And there's so many reasons why organic's important nowadays. All the chemicals in conventional foods create lots of inflammation, and the chemicals accumulate in your body. That's a whole nother discussion. But fresh fruits and vegetables, quality meat, some eggs, maybe a little rice if you want, or a little quinoa or another grain, and just basic, simple foods. They're not as exciting to start with, but then you start experimenting. And Marzi just made a wonder. She took chicken breasts today and she made a peanut sauce with fresh peanuts, just put them in the grinder and let them grind up. And I don't know what else she added to it, but they were delicious. And put the peanut sauce on top of the chicken. It was really great. It was a great lunch. So you can make flavorful foods, but you don't have to use garbage ingredients to do it. Both of my books have excellent recipes. In the second book, I reached out to just over 20 of my friends, famous health educators in the world, and I said, send me 3 recipes, 1 breakfast, 1 lunch, 1 dinner, gluten-free and dairy-free and added sugar-free. And they have to be easy. So there's 23 or 24 people, and you've got 23 or 24 different breakfast recipes, lunch recipes, dinner recipes that are not hard to make, that are really tasty. And that's in the book, You Can Fix Your Brain. So maybe once a week, you try a new recipe. And what happens in 6 months, you've got 20 recipes that you've tried and you like 12 of them. You really like 12 of them. But that's the way you change a lifestyle, is just a little bit at a time, just a little bit. Now, what about supplements? Of course, there are supplements that can help. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about it now. So the first one is GS Immunopro PRP. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It comes from colostrum. There are components in colostrum, lots of different components in colostrum. One category of components are called proline-rich polypeptides, PRPs. And there's a group of those PRPs from colostrum called colostronin. Colostronin has been found to be tremendous for brain function. In the Journal of Alzheimer's Research, they say colostronin alleviates amyloid-induced toxicity in the memory center of the brain. In this journal from 2009, they say colostronin nanopeptides affects amyloid beta aggregation. So when you use colostronin, GS Immunopro PRP, it says the proline-rich polypeptides can directly interact with amyloid beta, inhibit its aggregation, and disrupt existing aggregates, acting as a beta sheet breaker, which means it stops the conversion to the bad type of amyloid beta, and it breaks up the bad amyloid beta that you already have in your brain. That's colostronin. And that's the product GS Immunopro PRP. It's a spray, 2 pumps twice a day. And the studies, there was another, yes, here. In this study, colostronin, a proline-rich polypeptide complex isolated from colostrum for treatment of Alzheimer's disease, a double-blind placebo-controlled study. And in this study, they had 15 Alzheimer's patients that were given colostronin, 15 that were given bioorganic selenium, and 15 that were given a sugar pill. 8 of the 15 Alzheimer's patients treated with colostronin improved. And in the 7 others, the disease had stabilized. So this went on, it was 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off for a year. So 7 or 8 of the 15 Alzheimer's patients got better, and the other 7 did not progress and get worse in a year. None of the selenium patients or the sugar pill patients had any benefit whatsoever. So that's the GS Immunopro PRP. That's a long-term benefit. You don't take it and expect that it's going to make a difference in a bottle. It's not going to happen. So I would suggest you do, if you're going to try that, you get at least 3 bottles. You say, all right, this is enough to last for a couple months or so, Hi, Gio. Yeah, okay, soon. He's telling me he wants to go to bed and we have to check for scorpions. Okay, soon. Honey, can you, I lost my train of thought. So the colostronin, it'll take a while for it to have the benefit that it has. One of the ones that you get quicker benefits with is fog cutter. These are the adaptogens that work so well on the brain. I've used this product now for 6 years, and it's 2 pumps like that, twice a day, and the lights just turn up brighter within a few minutes. Some people notice in 1 day a difference. Some autism children get dramatic results with this quickly, but I always say, give it at least a month to 2 months trial before you say, yes, this is beneficial, or no, it's not. With the GS Immunopro PRP, it's going to be 3-6 months, a year. And with the fog cutter, it'll be, give it at least a month to be safe. Those two, there's so much more in terms of supplements you can take. There's a world of things out there. What I like about the fog cutter is that it has two categories in it. The first category is nootropics. Nootropics means helps your brain work better. And it does do that. It has those benefits. Many of the herbs in there have a number of studies that have shown, and there's a scientific guide that Ann will put the link in here for Fog Cutter, if she can find it. And I didn't tell her ahead of time to have it ready. That's the first category of nootropics. The other category, though, is that Fog Cutter also contains neurotropics. Neurotropics help your brain build healthier cells, healthier nerves. So every cell in your body regenerates. Neurotropics help you regenerate healthier, younger tissue. It doesn't matter what type of neurotropic you're talking about. If you're looking at neurotropics, your brain's functioning better long-term because you're building healthier cells. Nootropics, they're short-term, meaning while you take it, you get the benefit. Neurotropics, while you take it, you get some benefits, but long-term, you get a lot more. Fog Cutter has both. And I'm really, I'm in love with this product. I've seen so many people get dramatic results with it. It's really a fabulous product. I didn't get to many questions, but I'll look here and I'll get started on a few questions. Ann says, would that also include type 2 herpes? Yes, and 6, herpes 6 too. Lucia says, I can do that, send you those recipes. I'm gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free. Well, thank you for that. And do we have a link to questions? Is there, let me see here. Ann says, I'm a health and wellness coach, and I love to reference your books and website, Dr. Tom. I can totally trust and can feel confident using references from you. Thank you, Ann. That's very kind of you.
Dr. Tom, I'm going to go ahead and repost the document because it was one of your first chats, so you probably have to scroll up.
Okay. Let's see, here we go. Piper's on YouTube. She says, I was hospitalized in 2010 and eventually diagnosed with celiac. At this point, my body rejects almost all healthy food groups. I'm in a constant state of fatigue and brain fog. Yeah, Piper, there's been some damage, but every cell in your body regenerates. What you have to do is create about 10 years, 20 years, 15 to 20 years ago, we started talking about epigenetics, meaning around the genes. And what you have to do is create a healthier environment inside your cells so that when that cell's time is done and you need to regenerate a new cell, the raw material you have is going to build a healthier cell. And you can accelerate that process dramatically by being comprehensive. If you read my book, You Can Fix Your Brain, everything I talk about in there for brain deals with celiac disease. Also, I'd recommend Michelle Ross to you because you really need a coach. Michelle was diagnosed with celiac a number of years ago, and she knows all about it and all the complications. But there's no need for you to stay in a constant state of fatigue and brain fog. Not necessary. But you have to understand it's a slow, steady process of epigenetic reprogramming. You're putting a healthier environment, and I'm elaborating here because it's for all of you. You put a healthier environment around the cell. When that cell reproduces, it reproduces a healthier cell. We all want to be a 10 in life, right? Well, how come your thyroid's functioning at a 5.8? And I'm making it up. I'm making up the number. But a 5.8, when that cell reproduces, it reproduces as a 5.8. But wait a minute, your DNA is to be a 10. Why is it reproducing as a 5.8? Because of lifestyle and the inflammation in your body. So now you change your diet. Now you're avoiding some foods you found out are bad for you. You're taking some supplements. You're exercising in your aerobic range. You never exercise too hard if you're in your aerobic range because body language never lies. And so it may be just walking to the kitchen is going to have your heart go up and you're in aerobic range. So you just walk around the house a little bit, whatever it takes. But you create the environment with healthier food. So the raw material is now like oak instead of balsa wood, and you build stronger bones. Whatever tissue you're talking about, it's the same concept. And the result is now you're functioning at a 5.9. And the next time that cell reproduces, now you're functioning at a 6.0. You still feel lousy, you're still tired, but you're not quite as bad as you used to be. And then a 6.1, and then a 6.2. And eventually you're at a 7.8, and you go to church and you see someone you haven't seen in 9 months. And they say, wow, what happened to you? Say, oh, well, I'm functioning now at a 6.8. I used to be at a 5.2. And they look at you like, what? No, I'm building a healthier body. Right? So, but that's the way it happens. That's how you regenerate a healthier body. Oh, JD on Zoom says, what scientific evidence do you have that PRP spray works? My doc is a non-believer. Well, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but when you look at a title like colostrin, a proline-rich polypeptide complex isolated from colostrin for treatment of Alzheimer's, and 8 of 15 patients got better in a year on colostrin. Or you look at another one that says colostrin decreases hypersensitivity and allergic responses to common allergens. Or you look at another one that says colostrin alleviates amyloid-induced toxicity in the memory centers of the brain. Or you look at another one that says colostrin nanopeptide affects amyloid beta aggregation. So JP, there's a lot of science out there, a lot. That's all I'll say on that one. Also, do these supplements help with autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and Sjogren's? Does colostrum and fall cutter help with ADHD? Yes, on both counts. Yes, and that's from Omnom on YouTube. Fina on Facebook says cage-free or pasture eggs. I don't know the difference between the two. If they're cage-free, they're usually free roaming, but that's the concept, is to have chickens that are out there eating worms and bugs, because that's what they're supposed to eat. And sometimes farmers will add a little fish oil to their meal, omega-3s. Ziploc bags are not bad for cooking. No, this is from Dra Prabaro on Instagram. No, they're terrible for cooking. Never let your food touch plastic. And that is such a horrible thing to say, because everything's wrapped in plastic. So get it out of the plastic as quickly as possible. Microplastics are becoming more and more of a problem around the world because we just toss this stuff in the ocean. It's in the fish now, it's in the shellfish. And the plastic, the chemicals used, they're called phthalates, to make plastic, mold plastic or plastic bags. They leach into the food. Now, I'm guilty. When I made my sweet potato fries, I put them in a big Ziploc bag. I put olive oil first, and just a little bit, and I closed the bag and ran my hands around like that. Then I took a paper towel and I went in there and I got the olive oil, most of it out, not all of it. Then I put more olive oil in and the Italian seasonings and then the French fries, right? So I tried to pull out any loose phthalates that might, but we probably got some exposure. You can't be too fanatical about this, but as you learn more, you do the little things that are an annoyance to do, but they make a difference. In the big term, they make a difference. Cross on Instagram ads, is cow milk bad for adults? Well, the way to know is to do the dairy zoomer. That's the blood test. But if you're asking my opinion, cow's milk is meant for a cow. And look at the size of cows and look at the size of humans now and how frequently obesity is a huge, but there are many reasons for that. It's not just because of milk, but the protein in cow's milk is 8 times the size of human breast milk proteins. So, we recommend everyone go gluten-free and dairy-free. We recommend the test to them first. And if they can't do the test, all right, let's just start you out gluten-free, dairy-free, added sugar-free, and let's see how you do over the next few months. Then maybe you can consider adding dairy back in. That's how we usually work with people. Rich on Facebook says, is 70 years old too late to start paying attention to these principles, assuming I'm still healthy? Rich, I'm 70. No, man, you're a young man. You're a young man. So there's no reason. Every cell in your body regenerates until the day you die. And so you start regenerating now. It'll be slower because you're 70, but you follow these principles in You Can Fix Your Brain. Get the book or the audio and just follow the principles. You'll notice within a month to 2 months, you just feel like $1 million. You just feel better. If your resting heart rate's in the 50s, you still only take off 10. No. If your resting heart rate's in the 50s, you take off 20. So it'd be 160 minus your age, plus or minus 5. Can you use fog cutter with stage 4 or 5 renal failure? No reason why not. I've never seen a study that said renal failure, that any of the herbs were contraindicated in these kind of dosages. They're very small dosages. It's the mixture together that makes it just so wonderful. It should not be a problem at all. Do you think microwaving food is detrimental for health? This is VH on Instagram. We don't have a microwave here. I wish we did. I really do, because I would use the microwave most every day. It's really good for one thing, and that is put your kitchen sponges in the microwave at night before you go to bed and turn it on. It kills everything. Microwave kills any life. So you want dead food? You really want dead food? It also destroys a number of the nutrients. So yes, microwaving is not good for you. It causes lots of problems. What are symptoms of inflammation? 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. That means cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune diseases. They're all inflammatory diseases. The symptoms are you don't feel good, you don't function well, and whatever tissue is being damaged, that's the diagnosis that you're likely to get as this thing progresses. Jill's on Facebook. You have previously mentioned a lot of gluten-free pasta is actually not gluten-free. What about the grocery store? Boxed gluten-free pasta certified gluten-free. Is that safe to eat? We don't eat any gluten-free foods anymore, Jill, without taking the enzymes beforehand. And there's 2 enzymes. One is called Wheat Rescue, and the other is called E3 Advanced Plus. And the difference between the two, if you've got gut problems, take the E3 Advanced Plus. If that's your history, gut problems. If you don't have gut problems, take the Wheat Rescue. But we just don't eat any gluten-free products anymore because contamination, over 32% of everything on a gluten-free menu is not gluten-free. It's contaminated. Now that comes from Columbia University. They sent 804 people out into the community with gluten testing equipment, said, go to restaurants and order off gluten-free menus and order 7 things. So that's 5,624 different items that were tested in the course of 1 week from gluten-free menus. 32% of everything is contaminated. 51% of gluten-free pizza is not gluten-free. 54% of gluten-free pasta is not gluten-free. It's contaminated. It's overwhelming when you start learning this stuff. So you get Wheat Rescue or E3 Advanced Plus, and you take it. Look, I'm half Italian. I'm going to eat pasta once in a while. We had it 3 or 4 nights ago. And I'm going to eat it once in a while because I love the feeling of pasta. And Marzi makes a really good sauce. But I take Wheat Rescue before I take one of each, the E3 and Wheat Rescue, before we eat. Okay, I'm 10 minutes over the hour. Sorry for that. And I'd love to do more, but it's time to go check for scorpions so Gio can go to sleep. Thank you all very much. It's really been a pleasure to be with you. The time goes so quickly. Thank you for joining us. And